scriptures, you can be in company of good books, but then things will really start making sense then when you are actually ready. See, I was exposed to this stuff at the age of 16, but the things never started making sense until I crossed 36. So 20 years, I was just, in the back of my mind, I always thought that this is the right thing. But then I had too many things on my plate. At least in my head, I had like, and I thought like I needed to do a lot of stuff before I move myself to this thing. I always knew probably that this is in the last course of my life, I'm going to follow this path anyways. But before that, I have very less time now. Like Lena is saying that we all have less time. So that's the kind of deadline I gave it to myself when I was 16 or 18. And I have very less time. Maybe I have 20 years, 25 years. Around that time, I need to achieve so much. I need to experience so much. I need to expose myself to all kind of experiences, go through life, live life. And then probably I will not have any regret that, okay, I have not done this, I have not tasted this, I have not. You can say like, I mean, whatever I have set my goals, uh, I was able to achieve most of them. I could see the nonsense part of it, like how futile all those desires were and how futile that it leads to nothing actually. At the end of the day, you are left with nothing. You always get an illusion, amazing illusion, very rosy and dreamy illusions you get. And I used to play with those illusions for few months, for few years, and then ultimately it all opens up to you that whatever you have thought about, it was all your own projection. There was no truth to it. Most of it is all our own projections. We make up stories in our head, we create images, we create stories, we live in those stories, we put colors to those stories, and then the time comes, then the bubble bursts, and then the reality is exposed on our face, and then we're like, oh my god, not again, what the hell. So yeah, I learned this hard way, gone through all these stages many times. So I do not really have regret. So when it comes to like thought about death, I, except for spirituality, I just don't feel that what is it in the life what I have not experienced. Most of the idiotic stuff, I think I have done most of it, and many times. Then what is the regret? That part I don't really feel that. Uh, that okay, all right. I mean, if it is to shut down this moment, it's okay. Should be, as long as it is breathing, this unit is breathing, it should do what it must do. Other than that, there should not be any other regret. All right. So shall we start now?
Yes. We had done until 18th. So we begin with 19th.
Let me get our book also.
Okay.
This is chapter 5, chapter 6.
5.
5. जिनका मन सर्वथा साम्यावस्था में अर्थात परमात्मा तत्व में स्थित हो गया है, उन्होंने यहीं जीते जी संसार को जीत लिया है. Did you get this book, Vikramji, or you did not get?
Gita Madhurya.
Not sure you got it, because those are not the sold books. Those are the books actually.
I did not.
Yeah, those are not the sold books. Those are like we were just getting it in the morning sessions.
Oh, okay.
जिनका मन सर्वथा साम्यावस्था में अर्थात परमात्मा तत्व में स्थित हो गया, उन्होंने यहीं जीते जी संसार को जीत लिया है, अर्थात वे संसार से ऊंचे उठ गए हैं. कारण कि ब्रह्म निर्दोष और सम है, इसीलिए वे समरूप ब्रह्म में ही स्थित रहते हैं. Okay, so what is it trying to say here? Even here is the mortal plane conquered by those whose mind is established in unity, since the absolute is untouched by evil and is the same to all, hence they are established in the eternal. What is mean by establishing unity and what is meant by establishing eternal? So संसार को जीत लिया है, अर्थात वे संसार से ऊंचे उठ गए. What is mean by संसार को जीत लिया है? What is mean by like who has conquered the mortal plane or the physical world? Somebody who has conquered the mortal plane or the physical world is somebody who has gone above this plane, who has now elevated to a higher plane. So all those things on the material plane now do not mean, it does not mean that they cease to exist for you. It just means that you don't find them stimulating for your mind. Like a small child who is playing with toys when he is small. But now, since he has gone past that age now 6, 7, 8, now he's gone like now 8 years old now. So the toys he used to play when he was 5 or 6, those toys don't excite him the same way as they used to excite him when he was 6 or 5. So even though his room, and I pretty much remember my daughter's room used to be covered with all the toys in the room. And one day she just decided that, Daddy, I wanted to clean up all this mess from my room. I said, what actually happened yesterday? What did you eat? That today you are telling me that this is a mess, because this mess used to be so dear to you. Because all these toys you have invested and you had made me buy these small things, which had created a pile of toys. And we always used to say that, Anya, it's very hard for us to come in your room because it's absolutely messy. And you used to tell us that, no, I love mine. I don't find this messy. I don't find it as a mess. I love the way this room looks like. So suddenly one day she's telling me that we need to clean up that whole thing. That means all those toys existed, but now she has raised above all those things. Now her mind has grown above all those things. She actually started seeing it as like, oh, these are absolutely worthless. It's a waste of time for me. And I need to have a clean, organized room. Those were the absolute alien words for her. And she came up with those terminologies to me. She told me that I need to organize my room. I was like, you can't imagine how happy I am feeling that you are telling me this, because I've been trying to tell you this for so many years, but it was never making any sense to you. And suddenly you are telling me the same thing today. So that is what happens to the sadhak. As a child, he keeps playing with money, with the pleasures of money can offer with women, with women will play with men, and all kind of pleasures like you can contemplate on. So a yogi or a sannyasi or somebody who has raised over risen over these um, materialistic objects, he probably has grown as a mountain now. He's not standing on the same plane now, so he is looking at these material things even though they still exist for him, but since his consciousness has risen to that level now, he can no longer feel stimulated by them. So that is why he is established in the unity now. So he is untouched by the evil. So all the evils the world has to offer, that evil, all that evil ceases to exist for him, or it does not really have the same charm it used to have. So that's when we say that, okay, he's established in the eternal, or he's established in the absolute now. That's what the difference is. That's what actually happens. And you don't really have to be a siddha yogi or like completely one who is reached to the final destination. Even on the level of sadhaks, you will see that as you grow wiser, your attraction to all these material objects will be loosening its grip. You will not be tightening your fists like this. Your fists will be very loose. You will not be holding it very tight. You will be just like, okay, all right, I have it, but I may not have it, or I don't care. That kind of attitude will be developed. So that is established in the eternal. Any question on that point? Anything? Vikramji, Reena, everything clear? Evil exists. No, it does not exist for him, but it exists on that plane, right? Suppose my daughter was playing with some, like there was one movie I remember. It was a Toy Story. It was a Toy Story kind of movie. And there was a character, one evil girl in that movie. That evil, I mean, it was portrayed as evil girl in such a way that the kids will get really scared of her. So, and when Anya wanted to actually see the movie, she wanted to see the movie for that girl. I was like, really? I thought like she must be the main character of the movie. But then I realized that the girl is not the main character. The main character is somebody else, and the girl is like a vamp. Like, so we saw the movie, and she was absolutely scared. And many times she used to close her eyes, and but at the end it was shown that the movie's heart has changed, and she I mean the girl's heart has changed, and she has turned good. But it does not make the children be less scared about that girl, because the kind of terror she creates in the movie, it is good enough. That is a long-lasting memory for them. So anytime we would go to some toy place, I would ask my daughter, "Do you want to get that um, um, doll? That girl's doll?" And she was like, "No, no, no. That is no. She is going to take away all my toys, and she will destroy my everything. And this, no, I don't want that." So she was like, so all those things are evil, right? Those things are very much evil in her world. They exist. And she was she never let me buy that toy for her. And I never bought it. But now at this age, now when she has now reached to 8, does it really matter? If I bring that girl to her, she would be looking at, she will laugh at it. She'll say, "Oh, even that movie was fake, that girl was fake, and everything was fake. I know now that the whole thing, how this operates." This is how the yogi's eye turns. What we call evil is not evil for yogi when he moves to that level. We can call that evil only on the plane when we are living on that plane. And we are calling it evil. It only signifies, and it only establishes this fact that we are still on that plane. When he is established in unity, for him, what is evil and what is everything is Prakriti and Maya. That is not non-mortal plane, but you can call it a non-mortal plane. I mean, for us to understand, physically, they are always going to be mortal, right? Physically, you can never beat the physics. Body will always be established in mortality. Physically will always remain mortal. Even if you become a Buddha, you will still grow old. You will still have gray hair, and then you will have the gray beard, and you will be losing your teeth at some point. So all those things will happen to you. So at one point you are going to die. That physical death is inevitable. But mentally, you can say, they are reborn as another human on a mental level, on a conscious level. So in that sense, there is a rebirth, and in that sense, they have gone beyond the mortal. So you probably are right that they are living on a non-mortal plane, on the conscious level. So all these thoughts of and all those things, they become very childish. On that plane, they become very childish.
One thing more I would like to add. Yesterday, I was listening to the discourse that things start becoming childish, but be under no impression that it is going to make you pain-free.
No. That's what I'm saying. On the physical level, see, the physical pain is inevitable.
No, the physical and the mental frustration level remains constant throughout the journey. It is like you are a kindergarten and you cannot add numbers. It's the same amount of stress on you, which when you are appearing for IIT JEE and you cannot solve a problem. The same amount of stress. That stress is C. That is a constant. That will not change.
No, but that stress, but your stress will be for some other causes.
Correct. The cause changes and you are going upper and upper, higher and higher, but the battle remains the same. So the intensity with which you have to fight, that remains exactly the same. Same as when you are
most
at the lower
most of our fights right now are on the bodily level, right? That bodily level fight, I'm just saying, that ceases to exist for the yogi. He does not really pay much attention to that, even though he goes through the pain. See, I can give an example just to make it very clear. Swami Vivekananda's guru was Ramakrishna Paramhans. He was the guru of Swami Vivekananda, who was a very famous scholar of India. Used to teach, great teacher of Vedanta. So Ramakrishna Paramhans, in the last years of his life, he was going through throat cancer. It was very difficult for him to eat. But nevertheless, it never affected his time devoted for satsangs or the spiritual associations he used to have, the gatherings and stuff like that. Whatever the teachings he was he was carrying forward to his devotees. That never stopped. So he was going through that pain, but that pain was so irrelevant for him because he was consumed by the light and the love for the God. He was so much that you can say that joy was so overwhelming that it was very difficult for other peoples to even see that even there is a trace of pain in his body, because we know that he has the cancer, but it does not look like he has the cancer. So the God had affected every cell of his body so much that the cancer, even though the cancer was there, but then cancer was only on the bodily level. It never infiltrate his thought process or mind. So that's what I'm saying. Then when you are devoted to something very bigger than yourself, then all these pains and sufferings on the bodily level, they stop having that meaning for you. You don't give them that meaning. I mean, they would exist. I would not say that pain stopped for him. The pain was there. But then right now we have different way of dealing with pain. We make every pain is like make it out of proportion.
Right.
In our head, every pain is like a big thing for us. Even a small thing, it becomes a big thing for us. But that is the only that's the evidence, or that is the proof that something bigger is not there in life. That is why body is the first thing, which is extremely important right now. So we are talking about something when you are established to unity or eternal. That means you have moved away from this bodily plane. So the pain will be there. The suffering on some level will be there. That's why I was trying to tell you that I think I said something like that the other day, that your association, I'm not sure what was it, but about the death thing, I think. Okay. your association with that, right?
Hmm.
The fear will always remain. That's what I was trying to say.
Yes.
Your association,
Hmm.
that that uh, that will be, you can say, that is severed, or is, you will not, some part or some element inside you will remain scared and fearful always, even though you are enlightened. Even when Buddha was going to that forest, that Angulimal's example, if you remember, his feet were trembling in that moment also. But he was still doing the right thing. See, some part of the body will always tremble. That you know that an established dacoit is living in that forest, whose only fun is to chop the heads off and cut the fingers of people and make a garland of those fingers. And he keeps account of how many people he has killed by the number of fingers he has collected, like number of thumbs he has collected of all those dead people. So that was his hobby. So
Sorry, is this a movie or a story?
no, it is it's a
Tale?
it's a yeah, it's a tale from Buddha, from Buddhism.
Oh, okay, because I was almost thinking, I think I've seen a horror movie like that. But go ahead, sorry.
No, it's not a horror movie. It's coming from Buddhist scriptures. And this is a very established, and now it has become like a folk tale and sort of thing. Like in India, they talk about this all the time, and like how Buddha had transformed the life of one person who was so deeply involved in criminal acts, and whose only joy was to kill people and take away everything from them. And he was only living that self-gratification life, that notorious self-gratification he was getting out of it. And he had lived his life all along like that. And there was no possibility of any reformation. But Buddha was going through that route, and people actually told him, please do not go through that forest, because this dacoit has been living there for years and he has killed so many people, and there is no way you are going to come out alive. Buddha is saying, I didn't plan to come to this place. I mean, the course of the nature was like that. I happened to come on this side now. Now, just because you are telling me that this guy is extremely fearful, like I should change my course, that does not sound right. Probably he is in deep darkness, and probably he is actually ready for light. And if I am the promoter of light, it is my job and it is my responsibility that I should go and meet him. Even that means that that is the end of my life. And what more the purpose could be, like if it is if it has been taken away for the right reason. So I will have no regret, because I have nothing to see in this life. And if me meeting this fellow means that that is the end of my life, then let it be. So he proceeds and he enters into that forest. And his name is Angulimal. So he comes in forward comes forward to in front of Buddha, and he says, I must give I must really praise you for your courage to enter in this forest, because I thought like people are so terrified that now they have stopped coming to this forest. And I was just living in this forest for so long, I haven't seen anybody coming. now I'm seeing the way you are dressed up and things like that. Doesn't look like you belong to this normal worldly life. But do you not even care for your own life? Why the hell you wanted to come to die? Buddha just says, okay, all right. I mean, I would not be asking any questions to you. I just want to see why you want to do this. And then he says, I don't have to explain to you anything. Just be ready to die, because I don't waste my time. So you just be ready. He said, I'm totally ready to die. Before that, you just do one thing for me. And then he said, what is that thing you want me to die? That is your last wish? He says, yeah, that is my last wish. Before that, if you could just bring me a couple of branches from this tree, maybe one branch from this tree, that will be good enough for me. So he said, this is so easy, and this possibly cannot be your last wish. So he just goes and he cuts the branch. He comes back. Buddha says, okay, all right. So I know you are very strong. You cut that branch so easily. Just please, now you already cut the branch, so just make sure that you put that branch back to that tree. You see, you are being ridiculous now. How can I put that branch back? Nobody can. Then Buddha just, he said, you told me that you are the extremely powerful, notorious, and so power does not lie in chopping and cutting and destroying things. The real power lies in actually making things, amending the things, fixing the things, making things look whole again. Those things are, that is the act of power. If you are thinking that cutting something is making you more powerful, even a child can do that. How does it make you powerful? So you don't seem to have any power. I'm extremely disappointed. Now you can kill me. That actually ditches his ego. That actually really, because nobody has talked to him so straightforwardly before, and maybe that moment was like that. So it just some lightning just struck him, and suddenly he realized that, oh, this is not really a power, what I was thinking, cutting the thumbs and all those things. So what is the real power then? Looks like this man has that answer, and if I chop his head, then I will never get that answer. So then he drops his weapon, and then he says, if you know what the real power is it possible for me to learn that power and how to be that much powerful? He said. Then Buddha takes him into his arm and everything, and then he actually gives him, what do you call it, Vikramji, Diksha?
Discipleship? No.
Yeah, sort of like, yeah. He makes him a disciple, or it's like
an apprentice.
Apprentice, yeah.
Apprentice
gives him the knowledge, like Krishna is giving knowledge to Arjuna in this case.
Diksha is
appointed him apprentice, yeah. He was joined into the commune.
Yeah, he was joined in the commune, and then when he brought him back into the commune, it was such a horrific. I mean, many people found out later on that Angulimal has taken the discipleship of Buddha, and he has joined the Sangha. Now he is a part of the Sangha, and many people came to see who that notorious. So people were actually so scared to come near to him, and Buddha was saying that no, he is my bhikshu now. That means he is my disciple now. So don't worry about him. He is no more the same person. And Buddha has already given him some teachings before so many people came to see him. And people had so much of, because so many people have lost so many loved ones. So many people have lost so many loved ones because of him. So they had extreme disgust and hatred towards him. So some of them, they started throwing stones at him, and then the one person started, and then so many other people started throwing stones. So, and then Angulimal was bleeding, like from head to toe. He was like absolutely, he was given a blood bath. So once that whole episode was over, actually Buddha reaches there and he stops people, and he says, Angulimal, being restrained in this situation when so much of hatred is thrown upon you, in a real sense, you have become a Brahmin today. Brahmin means like one who has known Brahma. In a real sense, you have become Brahma today. So from there on, I think he was one of his favorite students, actually. And I know that after a few years, he gets enlightened also, Angulimal. So that was the story. But how this story started, Vikramji, what we were talking about?
That even the Buddha's legs trembled when he was
Yeah, even the Buddha's leg also trembled. So even though he was doing the right thing, but still some part and some element inside him, that will always be trembling. It does not mean that you have to stop there, just because the problem with us is like we are so attached to that trembling part inside us. We are not attached to the untrembling part, the eternal part. We are not very close to it. We are close to the fearful part always. And that is why many people, like most of us, we can't gather the courage to do the right thing. The difference between the yogi and the normal person is this, that in spite of that trembling part, since he is very close to the eternal part within him, he is able to take those decisions. He is able to move forward even with those trembles also. Yeah, Vikramji.
Okay, number 20. He who with firm intellect and free from doubt rejoices not on obtaining what is pleasant and does not feel perturbed on meeting what is unpleasant, that knower of Brahma lives eternally in identity with Brahma. So this only happens when you have risen to the higher ground that you are talking about, higher state, in so that you are walking in the water, but the water is not touching the feet.
Yeah. So,
and that firm intellect and free of doubt means free from duality, free from the imagined self, because you have to get the freedom from the imagined self. That imagined self creates the duality. That framework, that trust on one's own eyes and senses, that creates doubt.
it is such a tricky matter that in spite of all these things, but when it comes to actually applying it, you will see the resistance. Yesterday, I think we were discussing something, and suddenly Anya came to me and she was asking me this question. She was asking me, Daddy, what are the traits of monkey mind? What are the traits of monkey mind? I really want to know what is the. I said, you are the monkey mind. He said, no, I just want to know what are the traits. Like, how would I know that this is monkey mind saying this? Like when I say something, this is monkey mind. I said, monkey mind always has likes and dislikes. First thing is extreme likes and dislikes. It will have. It will say, okay, I don't like this. I'm not ready for this. I feel extremely tired. I feel bored. This is absolutely so all these things are coming, and when you are getting the responses even before thinking, like there is no thought involved, but suddenly you are getting a lot of sensations inside, like resistances. Know for sure that all those sensations and resistances are coming from your latent tendencies. Those are coming from tendencies, and that's why they are coming from your monkey mind. Because it's a very clear distinction. Monkey mind is always a slave to the tendencies. So whatever comes from your tendency, that is a monkey mind. That is Maya, that is your I tendency, that is whichever name you can give it to it, or like a false ID or anything. And those are so established beliefs, and those are so quick responses that you would not even second thought those things. You will just go ahead and you would just want to work on it, act on it. It's so fast. It's so fast. So then she was asking me, Daddy, how would I correct this? Like how these traits of monkey mind, how would I be able to train this monkey mind? And because she very well understands that the step to take the monkey mind to God is, the first step is to train the monkey mind. If you cannot train it, you cannot take him to God, because he's not interested in God. First you have to train him. He's not interested in Maya. He is interested in Maya. He is interested in all the other business, all the other worldly affairs. What is happening here? What is happening there? What is happening in other person's life? All those things he's interested in. He's not interested in looking at himself. That is the last thing he wants to know. I said, you are asking me all these questions. I didn't make you ask this question, but you are asking me these questions. I am not sure I have any answer for this, and I'm not even sure you are ready for this, because it's very hard for you. She said, no, just go ahead. If you could just tell me in like one sentence, I would just try to apply that. I said, it's very simple, but extremely difficult. And I'm pretty sure you can do it. But nevertheless, I'll just tell you. I said, just ask yourself one question. What is, whenever you do something, what is it making me do this thing, and why I am doing this thing? And if the answer is coming from that, it is coming from tendency, it is coming, definitely then it's a monkey mind thing. And so as a child, she noted down that, and she just said, okay, all right. She said, okay, all right, if the answer is always a tendency, then should I just stop doing everything? Because now the answer is, okay, it is tendency. So what? So now should I not do it? That was her next question. I said, I mean, if you could.
Well, yeah.
So should I not do this? I said, I mean, I would not say, should I not do this or should I would say rather, to train monkey mind, try to do the things which monkey mind does not like. Like anything which requires some kind of dedication, some kind of discipline, monkey mind doesn't like that. So if you try to train your mind to adhere to one particular process or timetable or something like that, it does not like those things. It does not want to get trained in anything. If you tell yourself, okay, I'm going to read maybe 20 pages of book or 50 pages of book every day, no matter what, it will say, why? I will read when I feel like reading. Why I have to force myself to read? So those things are actually useful because they actually cut our bondages. The resistance inside is worked upon. And there could be a lot of things like that, like going for a walk, maybe like every day for 30 minutes or 1 hour. Or it could be anything like, okay, not talking on phone too long with anybody. Be in silence or anything like if somebody is extremely talkative, they can practice restraining on their getting too much involved in conversations and talking and be like a total blabber. So those kind of things can be curbed, and it will be very choking for the monkey mind, because something which you are already doing, if you are just doing the same thing, then that is not training him. Something which you are not doing and probably you are not very comfortable, those are the things need to be picked and need to work on those things. So for Anya, I told her, okay, you don't like to study the words, so make a habit of like studying at least 6 words every day. Make a habit of do some maths homework every day. Make a habit of reading a book on your own by yourself. You are doing karates and all the other things, but you only do those things only in the classes, but you never practice them at home. Try to put yourself into practice, like 15 minutes for this, 15 minutes for that. So those kind of things, like we try to make a timetable where she could like, and those will be the motivation for her is, okay, these activities are actually going to help monkey mind train. That is the motivation. And she is extremely motivated how to train him. So that's why she wants to do it. So she does all these things, she did all these things, and it actually came to applying these things. Oh my God, it was such a big challenge. And I knew it, I knew about it already, I knew about it. And she was like, I know, Daddy, that this is for monkey mind, but I just cannot do it. I said, I know. And when you were making this plan, you were so excited and you were saying, no, I'm so excited, I'm going to do it. But now when actually comes to the point where I actually want to do it, and I'm reminding you, there is a reminder also here sitting in front of you. If you were doing it by yourself, you could have kidded yourself. But here, alarm bell is sitting in front of you. I'm telling you, this is the monkey mind. You are fighting against your monkey mind. So those things were there. And maybe if she has selected 5 or 6 tasks, she only completed maybe 2 with lot of effort. So you can see even a child with such less conditioning is having this much of resistance. Now where we stand after so many years of conditioning. And that is why we don't take it on too much, because it's like the moment the thought comes, it becomes null and void. There is a mechanism inside us which actually makes that thought, oh, it's irrelevant. Leave it. We don't want to work on it. Those things are only good for discussions, not for day-to-day life. Any questions on this?
I'm yet to be there where I am not perturbed, but I'm becoming more aware when I am perturbed. And when I become perturbed, I allow myself to be perturbed. I mean, I don't get perturbed about getting perturbed.
Yeah.
And that helps. And it very quickly, within a few minutes, I am back to my normal again. Because I have, see, being perturbed is one thing, then I'm comfortable with being perturbed. That's okay.
Right.
That's fine. I allow myself to be perturbed. That is
One
it.
thing is, one thing in our mind is that there are certain things which perturbs us. There are certain things which actually creates resistance in us. So normally I pick up those things because I want to see what part of I inside me is making this resistance come on surface. What part of me is resistant to this? So that is actually a very curiosity question for me. Like what is exactly resisting inside? Like why so much of resistance? And to be honest, very few things in the past few months I have encountered, but like 6 months back I used to have quite a few things which were extremely, I used to have like resistance. Like there was one guy who said some nasty things about Acharya. Somehow I could not brought myself to the level where I could just forget and forgive. I just thought at that moment that, oh, maybe he's not ready for this, so I just should leave. But then what happened? I stopped talking to him because I thought like, oh, he's not ready. What is the point? But then, because he was a friend, so he would still call me, or sometimes he would. So he had some favor to ask me. So I was getting that resistance. No, I'm not going to give you any favor. You were very mean to my guru. I am not going to be very polite with you anymore. That thing was like coming. I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, so as long as he was listening about Acharya ji, I was okay. But now, since he has made those nasty comments about him, there is some part inside me which is holding on to that grudge. And that's why it does not want to return his favor. I could actually see it very clearly. And I had to really battle that, because before I could say, yes, okay, I will do it, I had to really work very hard on myself to come to that point where, okay, all right, I will still do it. even though you had been very mean, but I cannot come to that level where I would just cut off all the relationships and stuff like that. I'll do, because if I could be of any help, why not? So, but then this kind of thing will happen. Like wherever you will have slightest of some attachment, something, and something goes wrong somewhere, you will on the unconscious level, you will have resistance for some people. You will have negativity for some people. You will have extreme, I mean, it can go to the extent where you actually cannot even stand those people. It can, and that depends on the rotting of the mind, how far the mind has rotten. If it cannot even stand a person, that means it has really gone on the level of rottenness. So we need to be able to see those kind of subtle things happening inside us. That's very important. So I always try to catch those resistances, because they tell me a lot about myself. That, see, the good part is always there, right? I can talk so many great things. Oh, this is happening, that is happening, I'm this, but those things are never the real oh, you can sit for like 1 hour, 2 hours in meditation, in sadhanas, and you can be thoughtless, thought free, and you can be peaceful for long hours. You don't feel anger on so many things. You can be calm. So those things are not the actual proofs of your spiritual level, where you are. You need to see these bugs, these worms inside you, and they always show up in the form of small resistances. So we have to like pick them out, like those worms, as you pick them from those weevils, in sometimes they are in the rice, like before making the rice. So those kind of like weevils or bugs, you have to pick them, like hand pick them, and you have to like put them aside and label them. Okay, all right, this is the thing I need to work on. Because if you just shove them under the rug, they'll disappear, they will hide again, and you will never again you will glorify yourself. Oh, you are moved on next level, and you have become this yogi and that yogi, and you will kid yourself along. You will say, oh, because positives, to collect positive is a great fun of ego, and it overshadows all the negatives underneath the positives. It will say, oh, I've gone on a great journey, I have taken big leaps, and it will not talk about its weaknesses. So my effort is always to look for those loopholes, those small things which are there, and they just keep coming to the surface in different situations. So, any questions till this point? I'm seeing a lot of
No, thank you.
messages here. Oh, I think you have no comment, Lina, right? After that, okay.
No, thanks.
Anything from Anya? Not Anya, Anisa? Are you even listening, or where are you? Why? Okay. All right. So
21.
next one.
Hmm.
He whose mind remains unattached to sense objects derives through meditation the sattvic joy which dwells in the mind. When that yogi, having completely identified himself through meditation with Brahma, enjoys eternal bliss. I mean, this has been repeated many times, and this has been said many times in different scriptures also, that the sensory objects, or the objects which actually these topics I have not even read these verses, but these topics I'm discussing with Anya almost every day. All these points are coming. Like she was asking me about that. What are the? How would I know what object my mind is getting attached to? How would I know? That was, I think, her question. And then I think what I could come up with was like my mind always likes excitements. It gets attached to a particular object just for a reason, because it gets some kind of high or some kind of happiness through that object. It is always looking for that high or that happiness. So whenever it gets a sense of that, okay, a particular object, there is a possibility of some kind of happiness I can extract from this object, then it starts investing in that object. It starts getting attached to that object. So Anya came up with this, that okay, I am getting a lot of high from playing some game, Roblox or something she plays. So probably that is why I'm getting so attached. I said, what are other attachments you have in your life? And then her honest answer was you. I said, how I have become a part of giving you high. She was saying, you always teach me God. So that gives me joy. So that is also attachment. So anything which gives you some sense of a possibility of happiness, or a promise of happiness, or a security of happiness, you will end up, your mind will end up becoming attached to that. That's a given actually. So that's why he's saying, he whose mind remain unattached to sensory objects. And mind actually is a slave of sensory objects. He's saying derives through meditation the sattvic joy. What is the sattvic joy? The sattvic joy is a different kind of joy actually. And most of us, we must have experienced that. I'm not sure if any one of you have done fasting. Lina, have you ever done fasting?
The intermittent fasting?
Like fasting, yeah, intermittent fasting, like 16 hours, yeah.
Yes, but we used to do that a little bit when Easter came around. You wouldn't try to eat as much on Fridays, on, Holy Fridays, I guess, just because, during the Easter Lenten season.
So that fasting will be like from morning to evening, or like from night to the next day?
I think it was more from morning till evening, and then you would have like a dinner. But you were trying to kind of a little stay away from a lot of food or consumption during the day, so that you can then, appreciate more of your time. And technically, the Lenten season in Catholicism is about, what are you going to give up? So a lot of people kind of use that as another thing about, okay, let me just give up food, fasting. And they actually do encourage it if you're healthy enough to do so.
So I have seen this fasting lot in India, and I was with my sister during my last visit, and I saw her doing fasting all the time, and I think a couple of times I saw her, and this fasting could be a very sattvic joy. It could be a very sattvic joy, but unfortunately for many people, it does not turn out like a sattvic joy. So what I'm trying to say is that whichever karma you do against your senses, maybe against the pull of your senses, that gives you a great inner strength, and that inner strength will be transpired as the sattvic joy. That inner strength, it has to result in an inner strength. If it is done correctly, it has to result in an inner strength. But unfortunately, what I could see in my sister's case, whole time she was thinking about food, and I don't think it was giving her inner strength. Actually, when the food was being served around 11:30 in the night, in one of those night sessions, and I normally don't eat in the night, so it was easy for me. Even though it was such a delicious food, I just said I'm not going to eat because I don't eat it in the night. So that rule is very clear to me. Even though it is Acharya Ji's foundation was made this food, and it's such a delicious vegan food, and all kind of great dishes are there, but unfortunately it is a wrong timing, and 11:30 in the night, I am not going to put that food in my stomach. So I'm sorry.
But night in India and day in America are the same, right?
No, I would not give myself that excuse, right? It has nothing to do with the truth, because it is not truth, right? Because once you are gone to India and you are lived there already 7 days, your body has already changed its clock now. The clock has already adapted to the Indian. I am sleeping in the night, so definitely it's a obviously it should not be. Body is not going to get confused there. It was a late night dinner, but just to eat the food, I cannot. That's when the Maya is actually heavy on you. Now you have started proving something with logic to the mind, so what the intellect is trying to do here is trying to sell that food to the senses, but it wants to find some kind of logical reasoning, so it is actually serving the senses. So I was never going to do that, so I clearly said, okay, I'm not going to eat it. And my sister was on the fasting. Actually, she came up with the same principle. She said, my fasting actually ends at 12 o'clock. I said, if it was not this session, you would have been sleeping on the bed. You would have been sleeping, and you would not even get up in the night and go to the kitchen and eat at 12 o'clock. I'm sorry to tell you this, but this is not. She said, Alok, but the session is going to be long. It could be 5 hours, 6 hours in the night. And I am used to sleeping in the night. I am not used to listening to the session. And you have to understand this, that I did not eat for the whole day.
And that session went till 5 o'clock in the morning.
I know. The thing is, what she was telling me, that she did not eat for the whole day, that was also not truth. She had a big pot of fruit salad in the morning. I served it to her. She had a big fruit salad, and then she had sabudana khichdi in the lunch.
Were you Alok the brother or Alok the enemy?
I did not.
Let the poor sister eat.
I did not hold her. I said, do whatever you want to do, but please don't push me into eating and all those things. You do whatever you want to do. I mean, that is what you want to do. So that's up to you. So she went on. She had her nice dinner. But then she was calling me. She was saying, please come here and please at least take a look at these dishes. I said, okay, all right, I can come and see the dishes. So I went, and then I saw like they were all my favorite dishes. I said, it is very hard, I know. But one thing I can do, that I don't get to eat these kind of vegan sweets, like sweet dishes. So how about somebody pack this dish for me, and I'll eat it tomorrow morning, maybe. I will have that taste in the morning. But right now I cannot break my that discipline. I cannot. So the joy of that, standing to that extreme force, that was a sattvic joy. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Living to that standard and like going through that struggle and like overcoming that, that could turn into sattvic joy. But then for many people it turns sour. They are not very much devoted in developing the inner strength. It's like following the motions. If you are just following the motions, then you are actually doing it for wrong reasons. That's what I'm saying. That will not build the inner strength, and that will not give you any sattvic joy. I mean, just this is just one example. I mean, fasting is not the only example. There are many examples you can, but I mean, just the example was ready. That's why.
No, something to this effect I heard in the discourse by Acharya yesterday also. He says abstinence leads to greater joys because it prevents you from cheap thrills.
Exactly. Yeah. See,
Like,
the losing of all that delicious food, that happiness of losing of all that delicious food was nothing compared to that inner strength I was developing. It was more than high, actually. It was feeling so satisfactory, and so I was feeling so content, actually. Like, man, this is really good that it is in these kind of situations, mind is able to exercise restraint. And it was really very satisfactory. So what I was feeling, that is very much covered in this verse, that sattvic joy. And it comes with great contentness. You feel it's not like crazy exciting happiness or anything like that. It's a very soothing, it's a very comforting, and it's very peaceful inner light, you can say, inner strength. Lina, you want to read this?
Sure. The pleasures which are born of sense contacts are verily a source of suffering only, though appearing as enjoyable to worldly minded people. They have a beginning and an end, they come and go. Arjuna, it is for this reason that a wise man does not indulge in them.
Yeah, the cheap thrills.
Yeah. Yeah. Our mind has a habit of falling for it actually. So that it keeps going back to it, unfortunately. हे कुंती नंदन, इंद्रियों और विषयों के संयोग से पैदा होने वाले जितने भी भोग हैं, the pleasures which are born of sense and contacts. So indriya or vishay. So indriya means sensory organs, and vishay means the subjects.
Sensory objects.
Sensory objects. Yeah, sensory objects. That's what it is called, contacts. से पैदा होने वाले जितने भी भोग हैं, like, are verily a source of suffering only, though appearing as enjoyable to worldly minded people.
What is the meaning of word verily?
Are verily.
Verily, the linguist.
No, I wouldn't go that far. Like are a verifiable source, or a true source. Yeah.
True source, okay.
They have a beginning and an end. They come and go, Arjuna. But what is happening is, like, most of the time, mind also knows that. I mean, it has become disciplined now. It has understood now. It has become smart now. It knows, oh, it is going to be short-lived. I know that. It's not going to last forever. But let me have it for that short time. Let me enjoy that little moment.
Yeah.
Let me have that gulab jamun or rasgulla in my mouth. Gulab jamun or rasgulla in my mouth, and actually let me feel all the
taste.
The taste and all the juices flowing through. Let me enjoy all of that. So it's smart. It is a smart cookie actually. He knows all this. He's like, oh, I know that, man. I'm not idiot. I know that. I've been doing this for years. I know that. So what you're teaching me, Krishna? You are not teaching me something which I do not know. I already know this. That it is short-lived. It comes and goes. I know that. And that's why I want to do it 100 times or 1,000 times. It's smart like that. It has gone past Krishna. He's saying, why to leave? Why cannot I repeat it? And if I can repeat it, the problem of repetition is that if you repeat the same nonsense exercise, you are actually causing a lot of damage to your body and your mind. But since you are deluded, and that is why the word is given worldly minded people. That is why it appears as enjoyable. Since you are deluded, all these pleasures are going to be appearing as enjoyable to you, to your eyes. But they are extremely toxic and extremely bad for you. But we fail to see that. And just because we fail to see that, we fail to act on it. So he's saying it is for this reason that a wise man does not indulge in. But to be a wise is a far-fetched affair. It's not easy to be that wise person who could actually see this through and drop it.
There is no wise person, but there can be a wise choice. In the moment, if you are able to exercise that choice, that's it.
Yeah. I mean, it's
And
a,
most of the times you will not be. You will fail 9 out of 10 times.
oh yeah.
One you may succeed. That's it. You've got your moments of stupidity. Well, there are moments of wisdom also.
Mm. You learn from your mistakes actually, because mind always tries to hold on to something. Okay, oh, this is not working, this is very bad, let me minimize this, let me make this the size of this pleasure, of this joy, little smaller, little
Mhm.
smaller, little smaller. So it tries to extract that to that last point. Actually, it does not want to give up in one point, in one shot. It does not want to, it will find some ways to extract the same pleasure in some other thing. I mean, see, I had such a great weakness for sugar. It was so difficult. I mean, all my life I was addicted to sugar, and coming from that, like, then I turned into vegan. All my extremely favorite sweet dishes, they were over in one night. So it was such a torture for the mind to, like, okay, how can I then, I read so many descriptions how sugar could be so dangerous for the body, this, that. Mind did not want to agree with that. Like, okay, I know, understand, but sugar is very bad. But I really survived it this long, even with the sugar. It's bad, but then it figured out, oh, okay, all right, you can eat a little bit of jaggery. I can use jaggery in my tea or a coffee or something like that. So it wants to get it something. Oh, so I cannot eat chocolates. Maybe I can eat vegan chocolates. No. So you what do you say? Like, mind is always uh,
Trying to find ways.
trying to find ways. It improvises in the situation.
Right now, I have got these rashes and I'm trying to not scratch them. And continuously they want me to scratch them.
What is it? Like, how you got them?
I was doing lawn work, mowing some weed.
Some kind of infection? Some kind of.
Yeah, some contact with weed. I think tomorrow I will take antibiotics, be done with it. It's enough of scratchiness.
Yeah,
Itch.
the scratchiness is very difficult to. You probably might have to put some kind of soothing thing, aloe vera, this, that, to work on it.
Yeah, today satsang is a little. I've got constant resisting this. Yeah,
Mm,
and this is a blister. This is
it's already turned bad.
yeah.
Mm.
I'll take antibiotics tomorrow. I'm done with it, man.
If
Maybe
Or
not.
you can take Benadryl today and kind of help your body out because you're having an allergic reaction.
Benadryl.
Benadryl.
Yes,
Benadryl is OTC.
of course. It's for like more like when you're having an allergic reaction to something.
Okay.
Yeah, check on it and see if it's okay for you.
Yeah. Benadryl. I'm an old time addict of Benadryl. As a kid, I used to drink that as 2-3 rounds of Benadryl. Let's have them. Come on, bring it on.
Well, don't forget that it makes you sleepy. So just FYI.
Oh, I'm already sleepy. I slept at 4. I have not slept since, so I'm anyway dozing off today.
Oh, No, but it's not sleeping time yet. I thought we had satsang early today.
Yeah, but I also had a very late night. So
Oh, you had a late night. Okay.
I was working on a research project. So, anyways, I have finished that. So, from my side, that thing is done. And today I talked with the person I'm doing that paper with. I said, just ship it out. If it fails, it fails. We will. She was also very. Last 4 years, she has not been able to publish any paper.
Hmm.
Research is like that, you sometimes for 4 or 5 years you don't get anything. I said, "No, just have faith. Maybe this year you will have instead of one, you may have two very soon." So, anyways, so that is why I'm a little tired and this scratchy thing and
Oh, you could have brought it up early. I mean, we are already gone past almost 2 hours. We are gone. We could have stopped at 1.5 hours.
oh, that is it 2 hours? Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, we started at 5, right? It's 7 o'clock at my place now.
Okay. No, that is fine. That is fine.
Yeah,
Okay, so we can maybe stop at this 22 and then
yeah,
start.
22 is good enough. Yeah.
Okay, start from 23 from next time.
All right. Get back to your Benadryl and have dinner. Go knock yourself out
Yeah.
for the night.
Lena has got many qualities. Two of those, one is that she's very good at pharmacy
Mhm.
and pharmacy things, all things pharmacy. And second is weather. She's the weatherman. She knows weather in and out.
Good. Nice.
Well, I appreciate that, but no. But anyways, you all have a great evening, great week, and you all take care.
All right.
Sure.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Good night,
Bye, Nisa.
Lina.
Good night. Bye.
Okay, bye.